Trump's former chief of staff says he fits the fascist definition and prefers a dictator approach. John Kelly, the retired Marine general who was Trump's White House chief of staff, entered the 2024 fray in stunning fashion. A series of interviews published Tuesday saying the former president fits into the general definition of fascist. He goes on to tell this story where Trump mentions that he wishes his generals were like the German generals, and which kind of set off alarm bells for John Kelly. And then he says, do you mean Bismarck's generals? And for those of you who aren't history buff, he's talking about Otto von Bismarck, who was the general during World War I. He's like, I'm sure that's what he means. And then
wait, no, TJ, I want to elaborate on this because he also gave an interview to the Atlantic, and the way he phrased it in the interview to the Atlantic was hilarious because he said, according to Baker and Glazer, Kelly explained to Trump that what? Damn it. I forget what. God damn it. I should have. Okay. So he said, do you mean Bismarck's generals? He went on. I mean, I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was or about the Franco-Prussian War.
Yeah.
He's like trying to help him out.
He's like, or the Franco-Prussian War. I said, do you mean the Kaiser? Oh, I meant the Kaiser for World War I. Do you mean the Kaiser?
I'm an idiot. I'm sorry, TJ.
No, it's all right. No, it's fine.
Too. This is bad podcasting.
That's fine. It's all right.
You can spank me later.
No, I'm sure this my incompetent co-host TJ didn't think I'd get the whole quote in here. So all right. So the Kaiser's World War I. My mistake. Do you mean the Kaiser's general? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals. And he said, yeah, Hitler's generals. I explained to him that Rommel had to commit suicide or taking part in a plot against Hitler. Trump's campaign denied the exchange. This is absolutely false. President Trump never said this. The campaign preferred. So I love this. I love this so much. And I wish I had brought this clip too. There was a Fox News, Fox and Friends clip where Brian Kilmeade was trying to explain rationalize Trump saying this. And he's like, well, Trump had a lot of generals who didn't like him. He had a lot of generals who didn't want to do what he said. So he just wanted his generals to fall in line. And maybe he didn't realize that a lot of the generals during World War II were Nazis. It's like, buddy, what's going on? Well, that's. I'll try to find the clip. That's exactly what he said. But what were your thoughts, John? We'll go to you first.
So there is a lot to this. And did the story you read also cover the fucking Mexican?
Oh, no, not that one. No, but you can bring that one up too. Yeah. Vanessa Gan, I think her name.
You said something there, TJ, where you're like, people think this is going to be the thing that takes them down. And I agree with you. It's not, but it should be. And this is one of those things where, like, I get in fights with liberals a lot where they're like, oh, well, it's the media's fault. And I'm like, but like Democrats are the one who are supposed to win the election. They should manipulate the media to get them to do what they want. However, this is one of those cases where I'm just like, why the fuck aren't we talking about this more? Like, how do we live in a sane world? I don't care. It aligns both economic and moral interests. If you got into journalism to do good journalism and improve the world, well, when the guy running for president is saying, I want to be Hitler. I want to be a dictator on day one. I wish my generals are like Hitler's generals. And it's so very clear what's going on here. Any morality left in these journalists should be talking about this all the fucking time. And then on the other side of the aisle, this is good fucking shit. People love Hitler and not like love, but they love talking about the guy. Like, are you telling me that there's not like demand for more content about Trump saying he wants to be Hitler? Like that shit, like these interviews call him like wildfire. How can Joe Biden's age catch that level of wildfire? But this can't. I'm very confused. The Democrats should be doing more to push it, but I'm very confused how it's not a natural lightning rod that gets 24/7 discussion. It is actually like, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
I think a lot of it has to do with the way that people on the left and people on the right consume media. And people on the left do not gravitate towards those sensationalized headlines and just wild over the top reality TV show bullshit that has become the entire Republican. All the Republican Party is right now is a reality TV show, right?
It is. It is.
It's and you have to have an IQ below this line to ride that ride. Like you can't peddle the same type of media narrative to the same people and get the same reaction. And I think that is really the media as a whole has really just started pandering to that lowest common denominator of clicks and sensationalized headlines that goes for those people, and those people do not react the same to criticisms of Trump as they do to everything else. And I think that's just part of the problem. And we all get our people on the left don't have this is sorry, I'm ADHDing really hard here. But when you were talking about like how much Trump changed the Republican Party in such a short period of time, that can't happen on the left because you don't have the left coalescing around fucking anything. Like we are our own worst enemy on the left. We will fight. We will agree on 99.9% of things, and we'll take 1%. And if we're not on the same thing, we will be at each other's throats. We see it right now with Palestine and that issue, right? Like people are willing to let Trump win because they refuse to vote for Harris because they are not perfect on this one particular issue. And in the same way, people on the left consume, their media from so many different avenues and so many different sources. Like it's only boomers who watch CNN, right? Like there's nobody's watching cable news on either side anymore. It's only like a lot of us get our news from TikTok or the Facebook feed or wherever you're getting your news from. It's so spread out, and they don't have the ability to have that captive audience like they do on the right, where there's just a few outlets and they just suction cup to those, and they can just run these sensationalized headlines like Joe Biden's old, and they eat this shit up. And so I think that they run for.
But I want to pause you there because Joe Biden's old played on all of the left-wing networks too. Like everyone in the media,
including ours.
Including ours. That played everywhere. Like that level of media fire. It wasn't left-right. It was Fox News was talking about it. MSNBC was talking about it. TikTok was talking about it. Your fucking neighborhood kids' high school newspaper was talking about it. Okay, it was possible to cause that media shitstorm with that. So why was it possible with that, but not the dude running for president?
The reason it won't work is because we require our news stories to be tethered in reality, and there's no. So, like, Joe Biden was old, and so we were going to talk about it. It was real, but they spent
Trump does want to be Hitler. Like it is
reality. But they don't care about that. But like the way the news spreads on the right, like the Haitians eating cats shit and stuff like that. Like most of it's just bullshit. It's all made up. But the Hitler thing, I mean, they could talk about it. But you know what? Speaking of which, I'll go ahead and put up. This is how Fox News is covering it. Go ahead, Off Jawagon.
But also, we all already know that. Like it is not a surprise to any of us that Trump was like, yeah, Hitler's generals sound great. I want to be like Kim Jong Un. We wrote each other love letters. Like that should have been. And all this shit got covered, and we are desensitized to it. On the left, like we don't fucking. It's not a surprise. I read that headline. I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Exactly. No shock there at all.
So why are they going to report it like that when it's not going to get the click? I'm just going to read that. And I'm like, I don't even need to fact check this because it's true enough, even if he didn't actually say it. It's so close to reality that it doesn't matter anymore, And that's part of the thing, and that's part of the Trump success. Is it's wore us all out. It has desensitized us to the ridiculousness, and the left wing media did this at the beginning of his presidency, right? They covered him constantly with every asinine and ridiculous thing he said. And the grab him by the pussy thing got tons of attention, and all of the ridiculous shit he said got tons and tons of attention. And then we all got numb to it, and that's why they've moved on from it. That's why they don't cover it on the left, because again, did the Hitler comment surprise you even a little bit, tiny little bit?
So no, it didn't. But I will say that the Atlantic article I read was a very, very good article. I read the whole goddamn. I don't read a lot of full fucking articles from like political magazines. It's a very good article. And the thing that struck me about it was how sober it was.
Mhm.
They didn't cover it in the sensational way that, like we were talking about, they sensationalized the shit out of Trump's first term. The Atlantic article was a very sober, very like well-written piece of journalism that was engaging and captivating to someone who is of the college-educated variety, right? And so like that, I know it can play with us because it played with me, and I know that it's also can be sensational. But like one of the reasons that the Joe Biden thing was old too. People have been writing articles about Joe Biden being old his entire presidency. But there was a media shitstorm when there was a coalescing event, and it just sucked all the oxygen out of Joe Biden's presidency. And I don't understand why there was a clear coordinated campaign to make that happen. I don't understand why, like what forces prevent it, because it can't be economic. I know that this shit's getting clicks.
No, I'll tell you what it is. There's still people who can be swayed by stuff on the left. There's not on the right. Like who are you going by putting that coordinated effort out there? Who are you swaying on the right? No.
Yeah. And see, an example, I think, John, of when there was a coordinated effort, I would say, was during Trump's trials, especially his conviction. I feel like for like 3 weeks, the news was nothing but Trump's convictions and how bad this was and how this is embarrassing for the nation and stuff. I feel like it was just as strong as the Biden being old one. That didn't matter. Right? It just doesn't matter.
Here's the thing, TJ, and okay, this is all speculation. Like this isn't like I'm not like basing this on any evidence, but there is a counter argument to there's it's a witch hunt. It's there is a defense to the trials, right? That he's being politically persecuted.
Yeah,
like that isn't going to sway anyone on the right. And I think one of the reasons, and I'll put in some evidence here. One of the reasons you're seeing Kamala Harris perform better with older people than any Democrat before her is because of this shit. Like my grandfather, now he's always been a Democrat, but he fucking hates Trump, and he brings up Hitler all the time. He's an old fucking Jewish man who lived through World War II. Like he fucking hates him because he directly sees it. It's so clear as day to him, because that's what when he was my age, it's all that he fucking heard, And so like that shit plays with the older people, and I think it's very clear and obvious that is the reason that so many older people have jumped ship and are going to vote for Kamala Harris. And so like I think that the reason that the Trump trial shit doesn't work is there's another side of this story to tell. Like there's the Republicans are like, yeah, it's a political witch hunt. If they keep just getting hit with sober recollections of how Trump is saying these things about Hitler, there's no lily pad they can jump to. All they can jump to is no, he didn't. But if everyone is saying that yes, he did,
they don't live in that reality.
Like, I'm not talking hardcore Republicans. I'm talking non-voters in the middle who are like,
I don't know about that, John. I don't know about that, John.
Have you met any of them?
I don't know about that, man.
I think the non-voters in the middle is almost a non-existent demographic.
We agree.
No, non-vote, non-voters is the biggest voting bloc in this country.
No, but like people who are going to vote though, like I don't think that by now
people to vote. I think that this is something that will get normal people out of bed to go vote. I genuinely do, because it is one of the few things that we all agree on in America. Hitler bad. Like one of the very few things.
Yeah, I know.
Well, okay. So most of us agree on.
It's like a shockingly. Well, I want to talk about how they are covering in conservative media. This is a Fox News clip. What is this? Fox and Friends and Brian Kilmeade.
But the bottom line is, if you read H.R. McMaster's book, who is critical of President Trump in some of it and not in others, he talks about how Madison Kelly didn't like the president. And they didn't think he deserved the job, or they didn't think he was worthy of the job. And they went out of his way to make sure a lot of the things they asked him to do that they didn't like never got done. McMaster would be frustrated because he couldn't get their attention. And he would say, it's not your job to rein in the president. It's your job to do what the president wants. And then you factor in the fact that he runs his own company, coming from the business world, the first one we've ever had. It's not even a public company. And then he obviously has frustration. And I could absolutely see him go, now, you know what? It would be great to have German generals that actually do what we asked them to do, knowing that's a third, maybe not fully being cognizant of the third rail of German generals who were Nazis and whatever. But he was frustrated with the slowdown of commands that weren't
That ain't got pretty rough there. That ain't got pretty rough with him. Yeah, it's just like, well, maybe you didn't know the German,
But he clearly said no Hitler. Like in the audience, like, no, I want Hitler's dudes.
Right? It's like he didn't know Hitler's generals were Nazis.
The ones that were like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want because otherwise I will get executed. I want to say though, can we just talk about the Fox and Friends set for a minute and how it looks like that? Like one time you awkwardly went on like just like a friend's new couple double date thing that wasn't working out. And you're just like sitting on the couch, like trying to figure out what the fuck to talk about, and then it like emotionally and traumatically scars you from like social interactions for years afterwards. It always looks like that. Like one guy hands on his knees, other guy like this, like. It's the most awkward fucking layout. I feel like I'm watching Napoleon Dynamite. I'm so uncomfortable, and I don't understand why they continue with this set.
I've never thought about this. I genuinely have never thought about this, but you are so right.
That's so good.
I as someone who has like been in like broadcast positions like back in college and shit, like I would have fucking hated this set. I would have like slapped the producer if they told me go sit on a couch.
Yeah.
Oddly kind of facing each other, but not. Like put your fucking crotch right in front of the camera for everyone to see. This is terrible television. I've never even considered that.
Man, that's such a good observation. You're right. It's just, and especially like even like because you can't sit too close, but you don't want to sit too far. And you got to look at the camera and look at your and it's just
you can't lean too far forward. You have to awkwardly kind of just like position yourself.
Like, that would be a terrible setup for a show. Like it'd be better like if it was just they were just like a giant loop and they were facing each other, but they can't even do that. And it does give off energy. Like you went over to your buddy's house and like his dad and older sister happened to be there too, and you're just sitting there just awkwardly having conversation. And just like, I know Patty looks so strange and weird, but
TJ, do you know the guy on the left? Do you know his name?
I don't know his name. No.
Every
Did you ask the black guy if you knew the black guy's name? Really?
That was bad.
Of course, yeah.
I'll take that one, guys. I was put under on anesthesia earlier. It's the drugs that's still wearing off. Sorry, but his look cracks me up. He always looks like he wants to murder the other. Like even in that clip, he's just looking at him like.
So that guy, there was a funny clip of him like looking at the camera. It was during a Trump said something, and he looked at the camera all weird and everything. But you know who's even like I feel even more. Steve Doocy, actually. Steve Doocy is always this guy right here. He in the yellow tie. He is always saying something like moderately sane, like I don't know. I don't think that Democrats actually want to execute children after they're born. And the other two are always... Like, Steve Doocy is slowly losing his patience with Fox. He must be under contract and he can't leave or something because for the last 2 years, he's always starting fights with the other ones. He's not a liberal by any definition, but he is the most sane conservative on Fox News remaining. At least saying something like that. Oh, boy. Okay, so...
Wait. Because I also want to mention the Mexicans.
Oh, that's right. The Mexican comment.
Because the Hitler, honestly, like the Hitler thing, like that was like, you're right. Like I was like unsurprised by that. When I read the story about the Mexican soldier who died, I was not surprised that Trump would behave that way, but it was like, oh, that's a really funny fucking story. So the what went down is there was this woman. What was her name? TJ
Vanessa Gan.
Vanessa Gan, and she was this Mexican soldier. She was killed on an army base in Texas, I think, or she's killed off the base or something like that. And it was like a big thing in the news. Her family went to visit the White House, and Trump promised them, "I will pay for it. I will pay for everything personally." And he made a big ado about saying, "Oh no, this can't come from public funds. This has to come from me." He said, quote, "If I can help out with the funeral, I'll help. I'll help you with that." He said, "I'll help you out financially. I'll help you." Natalie Quam, the family's attorney, responded, "I think the military will be taking care of it." Trump replied, "Good. They'll do a military. That's good. If you need help, I'll help you out." Later, a reporter covering the meeting asked Trump, have you offered to do that for other families before?" Trump responded, I have personally, I have to do it personally. It can't do it through the government. The reporter then asked, so you've written checks to help other families before this? Trump returned to the family, still present, said, I have, because some families need help. Maybe you don't need help some from a financial standpoint. I have no idea. I just think it's a horrific thing that happened. And if you did need help, I'll be there to help you. So very clearly, emphatically saying he wants to personally help them. Cannot be misinterpreted. Like in no possible way.
It sounded like you were having a stroke there for a little bit. So
one of the funnest like party tricks I have is just to read Trump. Like it like without the Trump accent, just reading it sober is the funniest thing in the entire world because the sentences don't make any sense if you don't hear them in Trump's voice. But anyway,
you need the hand gestures too, and the butthole mouth.
Yeah, and the butthole mouth. Yep. So later he gets the bill, right? He asked if they'd received the bill to one of his aides, and they said yes, we received the bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. Quote, it doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. and he told him to not pay it. The family has since confirmed that he never paid the fucking bill. This whole big thing, and it highlighted so many things about Donald Trump that just like we know to be true, but damn, to hear them just said so plainly, like the fucking like, oh, it doesn't cost that much to bury a fucking Mexican. If it was my kid, I guarantee you, his kid would have a more expensive funeral than $60,000. But a fucking Mexican, no, that's ridiculous. He got pissed they were ripping him off. How dare the poors actually request that much money from him? How dare they, those fucking Mexicans?
Yeah, that's just not surprising from Trump there. It's just that it's another of those things too that of course Trump said that. Of course he did. I don't know. This is like I don't know who's going to win this election, but the fact that it's still possible that Trump can win. You know, John, when you mentioned what's it, Off Jawagon, the grab by the pussy. I can't remember which one of you mentioned it, the grab by the pussy thing. If you guys remember, the Republicans abandoned Trump after that. For like the next week, every Republican said, this is an outrage. I can no longer support him. I remember Tommy fucking Lauren posted a tweet saying, I support Mike Pence or something. It's just everyone just scattered. But then the same thing happened on January 6th. Republicans spoke out against it. They all said, this is awful. They said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I can't believe that we're going to impeach Donald Trump. Within a couple of weeks, they realized didn't change a fucking thing. The voters loved it. And like the problem with the Republican Party is Republican voters. People don't like saying this. Like they don't point this out. The problem with the Republican parties is the fact that it's run by Republican voters. And they put the politicians in. They love Trump and they haven't backed off from it. That's the problem. We blame the politicians. We blame the punditry. Go ahead.
Well, first, I want to tie this back to January 6th and the like you said, you read the sobering article about Trump admiring Hitler and wanting Hitler's generals, and like that's the thing is like January 6th is one of the most sobering moments in U.S. history, and if that didn't sell you on getting out to vote and who you're going to vote for, nothing's going.
I don't think anything will. I agree. I don't think anything will.
But
I think that's because it happened 4 years ago. I think if January 6th happened today, it would be a much different story. Like I think they've just had time to shine that turd.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a thing. Like it happened 4 years ago. Great. We remember 9/11. How many fucking years later?
Yeah, I just like
fucking God. Like it's you know. That was, I mean, obviously, as many people didn't die, thank God. You know, very few people died by comparison of what could have happened.
It wasn't bad enough. That was the problem.
And maybe that's what it was. But I mean, that was the closest thing we've had since the Civil War to, you know, an overthrow of the government and insurrection, and that's a very sobering moment. And I don't know who is left on the fence that gives a shit about whatever Trump's going to say or do or anything that isn't going to be convinced at that point that happened. You know, ex-girlfriends hang on to shit longer than apparently people have the attention span to 4 years is too long to hang on to fucking January 6th. So that and what were you just talking about now? You were talking.
I said, well, we were talking about the burial, January 6th, and Trump's. Republican voters were,
Republican voters are the problem, and I agree with that, but I disagree. The Republican Party actively cultivated their voter base. They played this line, and Mitch McConnell. I blame Mitch McConnell and Newt Gingrich for kind of being the architects of this. Is we can play with Frankenstein's monster. We can build this monster a little bit to gain a little bit more power with the fucking lunatics, right?
Right.
We can pander to them just a little bit, but we're in control. We control the narrative. We control the situation. We can build this monster to win these elections and put the people in power we want to be in power. And that monster became self-aware and got away from them. And so, Republican voters are the problem now, but they're the problem now because the Republican Party actively built that monster and made them the problem.
All right. Well, this
but
is
they
true.
have no choice.
Like what else? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they had to go.
They had a choice at a certain point. They lost that choice because the monster.
The choice was make the monster or lose. Like, yes, that's a choice. Like, it's a moral choice, correct? But to a politician,
John's talking about the foundational choice that like Newt Gingrich made, and like back in the '90s and stuff that we're going to court.
Make the monster or lose. That was maybe make the monster or delay your goals and your efforts, and maybe lose this specific election or this specific policy platform. But it wasn't. It was still playing politics as politics. You're going to have that back and forth swing. And the 90s was the perfect time to move the Overton window because they moved it to the right like crazy in the fucking 90s.
Well, so if they wanted to, but see, like the problem they had was their policies were all about benefiting rich people, and you're never going to get support. That's never going to happen if that's your entire platform. So they had to go with the cultural shit.
Ronald Reagan, what the hell are you talking about?
Exactly. Ronald Reagan is a good example of this. Like Ronald Reagan teamed up with Jerry Falwell with a moral majority.
Their darling president. Darling president, 2 terms. Obviously, his entire platform was benefiting the rich people.
No. His entire platform was demonizing black people and racism and saying that this is a Carter. Like the thing that Reagan did that was so good was that Carter was they were faced with the problem in the late 70s with stagflation and the energy crisis and stuff, and Carter made the mistake of saying, listen, here's what we need to do. We need to tighten our belts. We need to turn down our thermostats. No, fuck that. Americans don't want to hear that. What they want to hear is an optimistic message. And Reagan comes out and says, no, actually, this is a great nation. Fuck tightening our belts. We are the best thing that's been made on earth. And by the way, it's black people's fault that we're suffering. So hitting the cultural shit was the only way that you could push forward the actual rich people stuff. And like that's what I meant, that there is no universe in which they're like, hey, I'm just going to do these rich people policies. And what you need to do is get the cultural shit. But I agree completely that it didn't take long for the inmates to run the asylum. And I remember when it started happening. It was like the middle of the George W. Bush administration.
Tea Party.
Yes, it was you started seeing these folks like Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee. Yeah, Michelle Bachmann. Oh my God. Yeah. And I was like, oh, these are the same people I remember seeing in church. These are the exact same folks. And now they weren't just they weren't content with school board elections and showing the vote. Now they've been raised in this their entire lives, and they started running. And then Sarah Palin really is what tipped it over, and they felt bold and emboldened and confident, and they've been in charge of the party ever since. So I don't know. Like I still put it out. Yeah, the voters were cultivated for it, but it's still them. It's not like anyone tricked them into having these beliefs. They already had them. They just ended up gaining a lot of power.
The Republican Party exploited those beliefs, and that's how they built that monster. The Republican Party did not have to go with the Southern strategy. The Republican Party did not have to go with, all of Reagan's welfare queen, just anti every single minority possible strategy. Although Reagan was pro-immigration.
Yeah, I know, the amnesty. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But they didn't have to. It was the easiest path. It was the instant gratification path forward for the Republican Party. And now the results, the ramifications of that instant gratification are coming due. They're paying the piper, and that's why the inmates are running the asylum. They didn't have to do that. Like they made
They
the
would.
choice.
They would need to be something other than the Republican Party. They would have to be a completely different party if they did something else, I think.
This is where I disagree with you, is that demographically, they have hitched their wagon for decades to white America. And as TJ was saying, back with Reagan, it was the black people. Now it's the fucking brown people. With Bush, it was the fucking Muslims. It really doesn't matter who it is. It's just not the white people are causing all of the problems in America. And the issue, if you're a Republican in 2016, you just went through fucking 8 very successful years of a black Democrat as president, who was fucking adored by the country. If Obama could have run for a 3rd term, he would have won it, and he would have won a 4th term too, you know? And you're sitting there and you're like, oh shit, it's just going to get worse from here. The country is getting less white. In 20 years, white people are going to be not the minority, but only a plurality. Either you just fundamentally change the Republican Party, and they're in, like, as TJ said, it would be Theseus. It would not be the same party. Or you stoke up the fucking white people. It's your only choice.
Yeah, by 2008, that ship had sailed. But I'm saying the fundamental choice was still the Republican Party's choice to go down that road, to exploit this avenue and to build this monster. Like, they built this monster. And the Republican Party, they so actively, because the Republican Party was the socially progressive party for the first half of its existence, right? They made the conscious effort to shift from being the socially progressive civil rights party to the party of Southern white racists. Like, they actively made that decision because their economic policy sucked, right? Like, their economic policies have always sucked. There's never been a time in history that Republicans.
This is true.
So, but
the ending slavery one was pretty good. They started.
They were a hard money party, weren't they? Like, back in the day, like, they didn't want to. So that's what he's talking about. That
they've never had, like, they've always been the economically conservative party. Conservative economics is an oxymoron. Like, there's no, you cannot be conservatively economically prosperous. It just doesn't work. And that's where they always were. So they always had shitty economic policy, and that was fine until you get into a difficult economic situation like a recession. And then people start to stop caring so much about the social aspects. And as time marches on, the social aspects generally, as we used to believe, the long arm of history arches towards justice, and we're maybe eating our words on that now. But they came through, and the Democratic Party started shifting on the social issues where it wasn't a hard edge.
All right, it's that time, the end of the episode, the time where you're supposed to like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this with your friends, tell people how much you love me, TJ, and of course, our wonderful guest this week, Off Jawagon. How about, if you like him, how about Off Jawagon, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. And I'm on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, Off Jawagon. It's just OFF_JAWAGGON. You can also watch our podcast. We have one of our own as well that's called Let Them Eat Toast. You can find that everywhere you get your podcast, as well as in video form on the Off Jawagon YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys letting me plug that. I also sell merch, offjawagon.com. Just if you Google Off Jawagon, you'll find me. That's how it works.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for watching, folks. Statistically, you guys are probably our favorite guest. And although we do value the anonymity of our followers and the people who watch our show, we want you to do your best to contribute to the show and help to bring, left-wing hegemony to YouTube. And so do your best, folks. We'll catch you next time. Later, folks.